Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am really excited to welcome our guest today. This book, I Leave It Up to You, was funny. It was heartfelt. It made me extremely hungry to the point that I totally needed to get sushi before I had this interview to somehow satisfy that a little bit. Although I would imagine that Jack Jr.'s food is much better. I mean, not that the sushi wasn't great. It was great. But the way that it was described in the book, I don't think anything can come up to my imagination. So apologies to the awesome sushi place near us that can't match fantasy. But Jinwoo Chong, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. Please tell us a little bit about I Leave It Up to You.
Certainly. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for having me. This is a lovely thing. The book has been out for a month and still kind of overwhelming to really process, but I'm so glad it's reaching people and that people are liking it and that it's making people hungry. I think that's the most important part. Um, yeah, a little bit about the book. It's a novel about a young Korean American man named Jack Jr. He wakes up from a coma, a medically induced coma that he is very shocked to learn has lasted about 2 years. And in that time, the pandemic has happened. So, uh, add not knowing where he is or where his family or where his fiance is, to the also kind of horror of learning that this large thing has just happened all over the world. And he has no other choice really but to reconnect with his estranged family and go back to work in this family's sushi restaurant where, all throughout his childhood, he was sort of honed to take over for his father, but abandoned his responsibility early in life and has kind of lived apart from everyone he knows for 10 years up until the point of his coma. It's a novel about second chances. It's a love story about Jack Jr. falling in love with the nurse who took care of him while he was unconscious. And it's also a family story about what this Korean American family in Fort Lee, New Jersey does to keep each other sane and to survive.
It was really interesting. The premise reminded me very, very slightly of that movie, While You Were Sleeping.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was that intentional at all?
I learned about this movie after the book came out. I had heard the title, and I could imagine what the movie was about from the title. And I think I was using a medically induced coma as a kind of a metaphor for, a sort of cognitive dissonance that we all seem to have gone through during the pandemic. It feels like, now we just hit 5 years. It feels like a lot longer time has passed, and in some ways it feels like a much shorter time has passed since that day. And it is to me a form, some kind of time travel that occurs when I think about that period that we all spent, that first summer, especially.
Oh, absolutely. That was just such a surreal time. And, I thought, especially now, I'm getting all of these pictures, these remember when pictures on my phone. And I'm like, I feel like that just happened. But also, like you said, it feels like it was years and years away. But so one of the questions actually I did have was how did you decide how long Jack Jr. was going to be in that coma for?
Yes, I wanted it to be long enough that it felt realistically sort of improbable. I think the kookiness of it, the surreality of it is a big part of it, and certainly tackled in the first chapter because he just wakes up and it's almost as if nothing has happened. He's fully kind of cognizant, speaking totally fine. We only understand the extent of what has happened to him later. And that's not really how people come out of comas. A lot of people are not really in comas for that long. And so I think I needed to settle on a length of time that put this firmly in more of like an unreal space, and to for it to be something that doesn't have much hook in reality or what actually happens.
Thought it was very interesting because there's many different routes you can take with that. And we're seeing a lot of really interesting takes on pandemic or post-pandemic stories now that we are moving 5 years past. But I did find the story to just be really, really good and really sweet. Like you said, it's a family story. I thought that John Jr.'s romance or with the nurse was hilarious in so many ways because he constantly is referring to the movie, I guess, Meet the Parents as Nurse Gaylord, which I find hilarious. If you have not seen the movie Meet the Parents, it's about God, I can't remember who the love interest was. I know, but I know Ben Stiller is Nurse Gaylord.
Yeah.
He's and he's meeting Robert De Niro, his fiance's, or he wants to propose to her
Hmm.
parents, Robert De Niro, and I don't know, he's a male nurse and his
Yeah.
real first name, spoiler alert, is Gaylord. But I thought that was really, really funny how he keeps referring to him as Nurse Gaylord.
Yeah.
It just added just this real comical thing in this really dark situation. And you manage that a lot throughout the story, with Jack Jr.'s relationship with his nephew, Juno, who was really interesting. And it's very easy when you're writing a story like this to fall into just the heaviness of the things that brought certain situations on. And you managed to balance it with humor very, very well. Um, how was that for you? Did you find that very difficult, or were you just chuckling and saying Nurse Gaylord and some of the other funny stuff that happens that I don't want to say because people need to read this book?
Great question. The humor was something I've never really done before. If anyone has ever read anything I've done prior to this book, it's pretty dark and heavy. A lot of it is very speculative, a lot of science fiction bent to it. My first novel was very much of that category. And I think I was just having a lot of fun inserting things that I found funny into this story, because it is just kind of a pretty ridiculous plot, when you boil it down to what actually happens. There needs to be, I felt that there needed to be some sort of suspension of reality, and for us to be able to make light of this actually kind of harrowing thing that happens to Jack Jr. And I think we get a sense of what kind of person he is in dealing with it. He inserts a lot of his own sort of dry, kind of deadpan humor into it, and you see everybody around him sort of begrudgingly play along because they love him. But he's just a kind of a sarcastic uh, Debbie Downer a lot of the time, and I found that really funny to work with. It did come kind of naturally because I was looking for ways to lighten the load, to make things to bring a sense of levity to what was happening. I did not want to write a COVID story that was particularly realistic, and it didn't interest me in that moment. I wanted to find something to laugh about and to smile about in that time.
Talking about food, are you a chef? Do you like a secret chef? Do you just enjoy food? Do you cook? I found just the whole story of the restaurant very interesting. It was and just some of like the conceptions, about how it was Japanese food, but also Korean food, or, Korean family running a Japanese restaurant and the training. I thought that it was all very interesting. And as I mentioned before, it made me very, very hungry. So I'm curious about your background with food.
I am not a chef. I consider it the highest compliment that some people think I am from reading this book. I'm just an eater. There's no food I don't like. Sushi is my favorite food in the whole world. It's probably I could eat it every day if I wanted, and if I could. And a lot of the descriptions of the restaurant work, of the cuisine that goes into it, I didn't really have to look into or do much research in. I think I just a long time admirer of the craft. The part of sushi making is that it looks really easy and it's actually so disciplined. It's so regimented. It takes years of training because the skill involved is really kind of invisible, because it happens so fast. And I have such respect for the people that do it. And I wanted to render that in a way that felt kind of reverent, but also uh, could teach people a little bit about what it takes and to really get into the nitty-gritty of what it's like to be a chef. And so it was a lot of fun actually to enter that world because I have no actual background in it. I just got to use my imagination.
Did you talk to any chefs or hang out in any restaurants and tell them that they could send some sushi down your way while they shared their expertise and pearls of wisdom?
I think I've sat down at many a counter before and ordered omakase before, and I've definitely paid very close. When I was writing the book, I was paying very close attention to what they would do behind the scenes and sort of the repartee that they would have with customers. In America at least, the chefs hold a conversation. They kind of learn things about you. They have regulars and things like that. In Japan, there is a little bit of that, but there is also a kind of custom of, you go there to eat and you're done in maybe 15 minutes because the chef puts each one in front of you, watches you eat it, cleans your plate, and then passes you the next one. It's very sort of silent when it happens in Japan. And it's not the case in America. Everything's so social in America. And so it was really a lovely thing to go to certain restaurants and see what the chef would do to sort of make you feel at home and give you that kind of service.
When you sat down to write this, and I do find it very interesting, that you talked about how you do a lot of sci-fi and speculative, and I do like you'd mentioned this is almost like very light time travel, but it's not really sci-fi, but it is because you are suspending a bit of disbelief, as you said, about a medically induced coma, and also just kind of going through the eyes of somebody who literally lost time. Um, but did you know all of the backstory when you came to write the story? Did you know Jack Jr. and James's backstory? Did you know immediately what had happened with his fiance and so on?
I did. I think that is a characteristic of my process. I can't really improvise very well. It seems to stress me out in a lot of ways. I relied very heavily on an outline when I was writing my first book. So much though that it started to feel a little bit like a box. And this one, I still used an outline, but I did make some room for things that could be, put up to how I was feeling in the moment when I was writing it. But I did know everything that would happen because I knew specifically about certain secrets that the family was keeping from Jack at all times because I felt that it needed to become apparent why Jack's family did what they did in these early interactions with him. It was because that they were keeping these secrets from him. And I wanted when those secrets later get revealed towards the end of the book, I wanted that to be kind of a moment, like a gasp moment, when you realize that's why they did those things. And so I did plan everything in advance. I'm trying not to. I did sort of I enjoyed having a little bit more empty space to work with, but I'm weaning myself off an outline right now. We'll see.
I guess that was actually a really good segue into, are you working on something now? And is it very different than
Mm.
this book?
Yes, I'm almost done with the new novel. Almost. And the springboard for that was definitely how much I loved the relationship between Jack Jr. and Juno, his nephew, who's a teenager. There was so much heart in it. I felt a lot of kind of affinity for that relationship. I don't really have that relationship in my own life, and so I felt very envious of the two of them for having that support for each other. And so this next novel is an uncle and nephew again. It's kind of a road trip across America, and a lot of things go wrong. It's I think a little bit more of a dangerous story. It's tonally pretty similar, and as I said, I'm having a little more fun improvising. It's been kind of scary, but also very fulfilling to put the outline away and just see where it takes me.
That was one of my favorite relationships in the story too, other than like with Emil Cuddy, who I loved also. I was enjoying his and Jack Jr.'s courtship, even though it started in such a strange place. It was also just, I suppose, a meet cute, and it added some interesting, funny conversations between the two of them later on. But yeah, no, the relationship between Jack Jr. and Juno was another thing that I just adored about this book. I really, really loved him. I have twin 10-year-olds myself, so they're not teenagers, but you can kind of see that teenage personality emerging, and it was just really fun to watch the two of them together. Especially again, like since he remembers Juno being a kid, and then all of a sudden, suddenly they just bloom into teenagers, and you're like, I don't know how this even happened. So I'm excited. That's really cool. Is there food in it? The story.
There's no food.
Ooh.
Yeah, I need to put some in, I think.
If you put some food in, just make sure you make me hungry. I'm sure you will. But then actually, just really quickly, also a lot of people are saying that this book reminds them a little bit of The Bear, which everybody is telling me about too. Yeah,
Oh yeah. I
yeah.
love Bear. And I especially love the chaos of the kitchen that it portrays. I think that it's something that definitely inspired me in writing this one.
Well, thank you so much. Check out I Leave It Up to You by Jinwoo Chong. It is so good. It's really got something for everybody. But make sure that you make dinner plans after you plan on reading it, because you are going to be very, very hungry. Thank you so much. We are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.